Lucy took a deep breath, steadying herself as she stepped into the elegant hotel bar. At 62, she still turned heads, her silver hair perfectly coiffed, her lithe figure draped in a tailored black dress. But tonight wasn't about being noticed. She just needed a quiet drink to settle her nerves before tomorrow's big presentation. As Lucy perched on a bar stool, she felt a presence beside her. A low voice ordered a whiskey, neat. She glanced over, meeting striking green eyes set in a youthful face. The man flashed a disarming smile. "Long day?" he asked. Lucy nodded, finding herself oddly flustered. "You could say that. Big meeting in the morning." "Sounds stressful. I'm Jackson, by the way." He extended his hand. "Lucy," she replied, shaking it. His grip was firm, confident. They fell into easy conversation. Jackson was charming and quick-witted, drawing Lucy out of her shell. She found herself laughing more than she had in years. When he casually mentioned he was 32, Lucy's stomach dropped. She'd assumed he was older, still younger than her, certainly, but not quite so young. As the evening wore on, Lucy knew she should excuse herself and get some sleep. But she was captivated by Jackson's warmth, his attentiveness, the way his eyes crinkled when he smiled. For the first time in ages, she felt truly seen. "Another round?" Jackson asked, signaling the bartender. Lucy hesitated. "I really shouldn't." "Come on," he cajoled. "Live a little. What's the worst that could happen?" His grin was infectious. Lucy found herself nodding, pushing aside thoughts of her ex-husband, her disapproving children, her carefully cultivated image as a respected business consultant. For one night, she just wanted to feel alive again. Several drinks later, they stumbled out of the elevator on Lucy's floor, lips locked in a passionate embrace. Her hands roamed over Jackson's muscular back as he pressed her against the wall. "We shouldn't," Lucy gasped, even as she arched into his touch. "Do you want me to stop?" Jackson murmured, trailing kisses down her neck. Lucy's response was to pull him closer, fumbling with her keycard. They practically fell through the door, a tangle of limbs and discarded clothing. In the darkness of her hotel room, Lucy gave herself over to pure sensation. Jackson's hands and mouth seemed to be everywhere at once, igniting sparks of pleasure she'd thought long extinguished. She ran her fingers through his thick hair, marveling at his youthful vigor. When Jackson entered her, Lucy cried out. It had been so long, not just since she'd been with a man, but since she'd felt this alive, this passionate. Jackson set a steady rhythm, whispering words of praise and desire. Lucy matched him thrust for thrust, years of pent-up need pouring out of her. Afterwards, they lay tangled in the sheets, breath slowly returning to normal. Lucy's mind raced. What had she done? This went against everything she stood for, her carefully cultivated respectability, her role as a mature professional and mother. And yet, she couldn't remember the last time she'd felt so satisfied, so thoroughly alive. Jackson propped himself up on one elbow, studying her face. "Regrets?" he asked softly. Lucy considered for a long moment. "I should," she admitted. "But no regrets." His answering smile was radiant. He leaned in for a tender kiss that quickly deepened. As Jackson's hands began to roam once more, Lucy gave herself over to the moment. There would be time for doubts in the morning. The next few weeks passed in a blissful haze for Lucy. She and Jackson met whenever their schedules allowed, stealing passionate moments in hotel rooms and hidden corners. Lucy felt like a teenager again, giddy with infatuation. But reality had a way of intruding. Lucy's daughter, Amanda, grew suspicious of her mother's suddenly busy social calendar and dreamy demeanour. "Mum, what's going on with you lately?" Amanda demanded over lunch one day. "You're acting different." Lucy flushed, focusing intently on her salad. "I don't know what you mean, dear. I'm just keeping busy with work." Amanda's eyes narrowed. "Is there a man? Please tell me you're not seeing someone inappropriate." "Amanda, that's hardly any of your business," Lucy snapped. guilt and defensiveness warring within her. Her daughter's face softened. "I just worry about you, Mum. After everything with Dad." Lucy's ex-husband had left her 3 years ago for his much younger secretary. The betrayal and public humiliation had nearly broken her. She'd thrown herself into her work, determined to prove she didn't need a man to be successful and fulfilled, until Jackson had come along and upended everything. "I appreciate your concern," Lucy said, reaching across the table to squeeze Amanda's hand. "But I promise you I'm fine. Better than fine, actually." Amanda didn't look entirely convinced, but she let the subject drop. Lucy breathed a sigh of relief, even as guilt gnawed at her. She hated lying to her daughter, but how could she possibly explain her relationship with Jackson? As weeks turned to months, Lucy found herself falling deeper for the charismatic younger man. It wasn't just the physical passion, though that was certainly intoxicating. Jackson challenged her intellectually, made her laugh, encouraged her to embrace new experiences. For the first time in years, Lucy felt truly alive, but doubts persistently nagged at her. What kind of future could they possibly have? The age gap yawned between them, filled with potential pitfalls. And then there was the issue of children. Jackson was in his early 30s. Surely he'd want a family someday. The thought of him with a younger woman, raising the children Lucy could no longer give him, made her heart clench painfully. One lazy Sunday morning, as they lay tangled in Lucy's sheets, she broached the subject. "Jackson," she began hesitantly, "have you thought about where this is going? Between us." He propped himself up on one elbow, studying her face. "What do you mean?" Lucy sighed. "I mean, you're so young. You have your whole life ahead of you. Don't you want someone you can build a real future with? Someone who can give you a family?" Jackson's brow furrowed. "Lucy, you are my future. I don't care about our age difference. And as for kids, if we decide we want them someday, there are options: adoption, surrogacy. But honestly, I've never been sure I wanted children anyway." He cupped her face in his hands, green eyes intense. "I love you, Lucy. All of you. Your wisdom, your experiences, they're part of what drew me to you in the first place. I don't want some vapid 20-something. I want you." Tears pricked Lucy's eyes. She wanted so badly to believe him. But a lifetime of insecurities wasn't easily overcome. "I love you too," she whispered. "I'm just scared of getting hurt again, of hurting you." Jackson pulled her close, stroking her hair. "I know, but we can figure it out together. Just don't push me away, okay?" Lucy nodded against his chest, allowing herself to be soothed by his steady heartbeat. For now, at least, she would silence her doubts and savor their time together. As their relationship deepened, Lucy found the courage to introduce Jackson to her close friends. To her relief, they welcomed him warmly. Her best friend, Diane, pulled her aside at a dinner party. "He's wonderful, Lucy," Diane said, eyes twinkling. "A bit young, perhaps, but he clearly adores you. I haven't seen you this happy in years." Lucy flushed with pleasure. "He does make me happy. I just worry." Diane waved a hand dismissively. "Stop worrying so much and enjoy it. You deserve some joy in your life." Bolstered by her friend's support, Lucy began to relax into the relationship. She and Jackson settled into a comfortable routine, spending weekends exploring the city or curled up at home. Lucy revelled in rediscovering her sensual side, marvelling at Jackson's stamina and creativity in the bedroom. But their blissful bubble couldn't last forever. Reality came crashing down one crisp autumn day as Lucy and Jackson strolled hand in hand through the park. "Mom!" Lucy's blood ran cold at the familiar voice. She turned to see her son, Michael, staring at her in shock. His gaze flicked to their joined hands, then to Jackson's youthful face. "Michael," Lucy stammered. What are you doing here?" "I was meeting a client," Michael said slowly. "But clearly I'm interrupting something. Care to introduce me to your friend?" The disgust in his voice was palpable. Lucy flinched. "Michael, this is Jackson, my boyfriend." The word felt foreign on her tongue. She'd never used it to describe Jackson before, always dancing around labels. "Boyfriend?" Michael spat. "He looks barely older than your grandson." "Jesus Christ, Mom, have some self-respect." Jackson bristled beside her. "Now wait just a minute." Lucy laid a restraining hand on his arm. "Michael, please, can we discuss this privately? Come over for dinner tomorrow and we can talk." Her son's face was a mask of revulsion. "I don't think so. I can't even look at you right now." He stormed off, leaving Lucy shell-shocked. She sagged against Jackson, who wrapped a supportive arm around her waist. "Well," he said lightly, "I guess the cat's out of the bag." Lucy gave a strangled laugh that was half sob. "Oh God, what have I done?" The next few weeks were a nightmare. Michael told his sister, who was equally horrified. Lucy's phone buzzed constantly with angry messages from her children, questioning her judgment and sanity. Even her ex-husband weighed in, hypocritically lecturing her about appropriate behaviour. Through it all, Jackson was her rock. He held her as she cried, assured her that her children would come around eventually, and never once wavered in his devotion. But Lucy could see the toll it was taking on him. The cold looks and snide comments when they went out in public. The way his friends ribbed him about his sugar mama. One night, after a particularly grueling day of damage control, Lucy broached the subject she'd been dreading. "Jackson," she said softly, "I think maybe we should take a break." He stiffened beside her on the couch. "What? Why?" Lucy's heart clenched at the pain in his voice. "Because this isn't fair to you. You're young, you should be out living your life, not dealing with all this drama and judgment." Jackson's jaw clenched. "Don't do that, don't make decisions for me. I'm a grown man, Lucy. I knew what I was getting into with you." "Did you?" Lucy challenged. "Did you really understand what it would mean? The stares, the whispers, never being able to have a normal relationship with my family. The constant fear that you'll wake up one day and realise you've wasted your youth on an old woman." "Stop it," Jackson snapped. He gripped her shoulders, forcing her to meet his gaze. "You are not old, and being with you could never be a waste. Why can't you see how amazing you are?" Tears spilled down Lucy's cheeks. "I'm trying," she whispered. "But sometimes it's so hard to believe that this is real, that you could really want me." Jackson's expression softened. He pulled her into a fierce embrace. "Then I'll just have to keep showing you until you believe it," he murmured into her hair. "I'm not going anywhere, Lucy, no matter what anyone else thinks." Lucy melted into his arms, allowing herself to be comforted. She knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy, but maybe, just maybe, their love was strong enough to weather the storm. Over the next few months, Lucy and Jackson worked to rebuild her relationship with her children. It was a slow, painful process. Amanda came around first, reluctantly agreeing to meet Jackson for dinner. Though she remained wary, she had to admit he genuinely seemed to care for her mother. Michael was a tougher nut to crack. He refused to be in the same room as Jackson, speaking to Lucy only when absolutely necessary. The estrangement from her son weighed heavily on Lucy. There were nights she lay awake, wondering if she'd irreparably damaged her family for the sake of her own happiness. But there were bright spots too. Lucy's granddaughter, Sophia, took an immediate liking to Jackson. At 10 years old, she was blessedly free of the prejudices that clouded the adult's judgment. She delighted in Jackson's silly jokes and his willingness to play endless games of tag in the backyard. Watching them together, Lucy felt a bittersweet pang. In another life, Jackson could have been such a wonderful father. But she pushed the thought aside. They'd made their choice. There was no use dwelling on might-have-beens. As Lucy's 63rd birthday approached, Jackson insisted on planning a special celebration. He was maddeningly secretive about the details, telling her only to pack a bag for the weekend. When he pulled up to a quaint bed and breakfast in wine country, Lucy gasped in delight. "Oh, Jackson, it's beautiful!" He grinned, clearly pleased with her reaction. "Wait until you see inside." The innkeeper greeted them warmly, showing them to a luxurious suite overlooking rolling vineyards. A bottle of champagne chilled in an ice bucket, and a massive bouquet of roses adorned the dresser. "This is too much," Lucy protested weakly. Jackson silenced her with a kiss. "Nothing's too much for you," he murmured against her lips. They spent the weekend in a blissful haze, alternating between leisurely wine tastings and passionate lovemaking. On their last night, over a candlelit dinner, Jackson grew unusually serious. "Lucy," he began, reaching for her hand, "these past months with you have been the happiest of my life. I know it hasn't been easy, but I want you to know that I'm in this for the long haul." Lucy's breath caught as he withdrew a small velvet box from his pocket. "I'm not proposing," he said quickly. "Not yet, anyway. I know you're not ready for that, but I wanted to give you this, as a symbol of my commitment to you. To us." He opened the box, revealing a stunning sapphire and diamond ring. Lucy's eyes filled with tears. "It's beautiful," she whispered. Jackson slipped the ring onto her right hand. "I love you, Lucy, all of you. Your strength, your wisdom, your incredible heart. I don't care what anyone else thinks. You're it for me." Lucy's voice shook as she replied, "I love you too. So much." As Jackson pulled her in for a tender kiss, Lucy felt a sense of peace settle over her. She knew there would still be challenges ahead. Her relationship with Michael remained strained. She and Jackson would have to navigate the realities of their age gap as the years progressed. But in this moment, none of that mattered. She was loved, deeply and completely, by a man who saw her for everything she was. Lucy had spent so much of her life trying to fit into the boxes others created for her. Devoted wife, perfect mother, consummate professional. With Jackson, she was finally free to simply be herself. As they made love that night, Lucy marveled at how far she'd come. From that first spark of connection in a hotel bar to this profound, lasting bond. She'd taken a risk, opening her heart again after years of guarding it so carefully. And though the path hadn't been smooth, she couldn't regret a moment of it. Whatever the future held, Lucy knew she and Jackson would face it together. Their love might not fit society's narrow definitions, but it was real and true. And in the end, that was all that mattered.